I always like to say thank you for investing into yourself. First initial investment is your time, so I do appreciate that. Before I get started and get into this topic, I just want to say for my disclaimer, I am not an attorney. I don't present myself to be an attorney. I'm an economic activist. I'm an advocate. And this information is going to be based on just educational purposes. I'm also not a CPA, an accountant, or tax preparer. This will not offer any financial advice, but it's going to be some good information. It's going to be some good information. And again, I appreciate you guys for investing into yourself to be here. But I wanted to talk about this topic in regards to the purpose of a trust, the challenges of having a trust, and what we should know. I get a lot of questions just by me advocating on social media, just putting information out there to say, hey, it's important to learn these things. It's important to discuss these things with your family. Establishing a trust can provide invaluable protection and security for either single people. A trust is for married couples without children and married couples with children, especially blended family situations, even if it's special needs children, underage children. So hopefully I'll be able to just introduce you, go through this introductory selections of outlines on what's good benefits, key benefits of having a family trust or trust-based family planning. And I became a trustee about 2018. So I had to realize very quickly that I was a trustee of a trust, and also with my family creating their own trust, I had to understand the rules and the roles and activities of, just providing the best solutions, or mentally being in position to help my family protect those assets. That's a big role. So I wanted to understand, okay, if I was to help others get encouraged, even if they felt as though they didn't have a lot of money, how can they position themselves by allowing the trust to be the core, the foundation? So understanding the importance of estate planning prior to a near-death experience. You hear a lot of people be like, since COVID, I've been looking into this, since someone else had passed away, they've seen how so many families have to fight through estate planning, fight through probate, and they wanted to avoid those things. So again, having a trust in place is not like you don't wait until the last minute. Some of us are young by listening to this video. Some of us have, older parents or elders that are still in their family, and they don't even have a trust in place. So learning this can help you advocate for your family, ensuring asset protection. I am very strong-head when I talk about irrevocable trust. And just to kind of give you an understanding the difference between like irrevocable trust and revocable trust. See, revocable can be revised. It can be revoked. It could be rearranged, right? You can have a lot of control and dictations on decisions of making multiple changes because the assets are still in your control. It is still connected to your estate. So irrevocable, which cannot be, it cannot be revoked. It cannot be revised, things like that by you personally, because when you create an irrevocable trust, you personally give up the ownership. So I understand that sometimes there's a conflict there when you're like, I don't want an irrevocable trust because I want to make changes. But we also see that when you have a revocable, if there was a lawsuit, because a revocable don't protect you and don't ensure asset protection, people are stuck losing assets even with a trust. So irrevocable, like I said, I'm a strong advocate when it comes to that, because the trust helps safeguard your family's wealth and assets, preventing potential disputes or mismanagement. You hear, like, again, a lot of people have assets inside of a revocable trust, but again, because it does not protect it, now it becomes, oh man, I got to make changes. You're trying to make changes at the last minute, but if there's ever some legal court documents, some filings, or even a judgment or something to that factor where you have to pay out, you cannot move that. Now becomes mismanagement. You're losing assets even when you have a trust. So even with an irrevocable trust, it creates smooth transitions of wealth. And we have part 2, smooth transitions of wealth, where an irrevocable trust is a streamline to transfer your assets out of your estate. So anything that is titled in your name. So let's say as you're watching this, you're like, hey, I have a house in my name. I have a business in my name. I have a bank account in my name. I have life insurance policies in my name. All of these assets are considered a part of your estate. But once you remove those things and you smoothly transfer these wealth item assets out of your name, it's now no longer a part of your estate. So now it belongs to the trust. And this minimizes complications upon death. This minimizes high taxes upon death. It also minimizes the fight between your family have to go through probate. So this is why I'm very strong on talking about irrevocable trust. Now, in part 3, providing for your loved ones beyond the grave. So again, when someone passed away, they may be the breadwinner. They may, like, again, all these things that I previously talked about, owning the business, the bank account, the insurance policies, or anything that you own that is valuable. Sometimes when a person passed away, it goes, you know, that when that person passed away, then again, that business dies, or they have to freeze the bank account. They have to stop all these things because everything shuts down, because that person was the only signer, that person was the only responsible party, that person was the only authorized agent. You ever hear these terminologies? But with a trust don't die. With a trust, it allows you to position it to be in a place where a person that is living, a person that will own these things, typically the trust replaces that position. So now the trust allows you to make provisions for your spouse, your children, stepchildren, or any other dependents according to your instructions. So the trust can take care of them after your death. That means the bank account don't have to close, right? That business can still continually to operate. You see a lot of businesses, and if you're watching the replay, you can push pause and you can look up who owns Wells Fargo, like who actually own these entities that has been around for hundreds of years. And then start looking at, if I started a business today or tomorrow, or I own a business for about 5 years, what will actually happen to everything that I create? So this is where it comes into saying we need to know these things. We need to understand the key components of a trust and the trustees. So irrevocable living trust. I get this question asked, like, what's the difference between a living trust? And because you're still living, the one that creates the trust is the grantor. That's a position that says, hey, I'm creating this, rather if I was single, rather if I have children, rather if I'm married. It is in your best interest to protect everything that you create in your lifetime. It also allows you and or your spouse to give up ownership, control over those assets during your lifetime. Now, when you're removing the assets, wealth from the estate, while ensuring a smooth financial future for your loved ones upon death. So again, we could talk about, hey, I'm going to enjoy the benefits of my bank account overflowing. I'm going to speak some manifestation, right? I'm going to enjoy living in this house that I don't own. I'm going to enjoy this life insurance policy, or my kids will enjoy this life insurance policy that I don't own. So now I have the control because I know what ultimately I'm giving up, but the public don't have to know. Now you create I like to say, create a bank that your family can trust. So now all these things that it can create, also revenue while you're passing away. You may have some compound interest, depending on what type of policies you have. You may have businesses that may self-run itself, or if you have real estate and you say, hey, I got some tenants that they're going to be living in the home. So all we need to do is just hire maybe a management company, and your kids can now get revenue paid out to them through the tenants of a home. But see, if you own the house, you have tenants living in the house, then what happens is if it goes to probate, then the tenants has to move out because it now freezes the ownership of these assets. And that's typically what's been happening to family. Rather if you had a tenant in there or not, or maybe just family members, what comes happen? Lien, a foreclosure, sheriffs come in and take and move and remove people out the home because they don't know what type of control they could have had while they're living. The testamentary trust. A trust established under a valid will, active upon your passing. So now, even though you may hear the word trust, that don't necessarily mean that you can enjoy the benefits while you're living. See, this type of trust is established under a will. And if you guys ever seen any of my classes, we always talked about a will is just a wish, and it's also controlled by the courts. So even if you had a testamentary trust that is created after someone passes away, until the expiration of the trust, that means everything that you put inside the trust, right, usually is created for the best interest of the children until they reach a certain age, or sometimes the courts will appoint a trustee if they need to be, things need to be paid out to the children while they're young. And in every situation in every state, and different state laws are different. So I do want you guys to look those things up, but you can actually opt out of having a testamentary trust. You can say, hey, I don't want the courts to be involved. I want my family to have control, or whoever you appoint. Okay, you can designate trust, and we're here. You can designate trustees, a trust as an individual or entities. And I made that very clear before. I talked about how sometimes you may have a corporation that's a trustee. Sometimes you may have a charitable nonprofit organization that are trustees. These happen sometimes, where you can create multiple layers of protection. And I can say multiple layers of protection, and also like avenues, or they say loopholes, right? Avenues that continuously flow and fund the family. Some people like to use the terminology, the waterfall method, right? So you're now creating entities as trustees, because guess what happens to individuals? Individuals die, but entities don't die. So now when you're now looking at, okay, I got these either individuals in place, or I have these entities in place, or you can have both. All, in just in case if someone dies, you're like, okay, at least we still have the entity as a trustee that can now provide financial control or manage the financials, the assets, including healthcare decisions, right? If you become incapacitated, or even if you're incarcerated, I don't really hear that too often mentioned. If you get incarcerated, what happens is sometimes they pay the attorneys extra, right? Because the attorneys are not acting on behalf of themselves. They're acting on behalf of their client, which means in their position, they're considered an entity, right? A non-human entity. So they have to hire their attorney, get a paper approved, a beneficial ownership, got to now give over ownership to their attorney to go get access to their bank account, to pay their retainer fee, to pay their, books, put money on commissary, things like that. You give roles and approvals through the through the other sides of the gates if you're in jail. But these are things that you can put in place by saying, if it's either or, maybe I'll get into a car accident, maybe I'm, in a coma, maybe I'm not even at liberty to get to the bank. I can't make decisions over the phone, because guess what? They need a signature, a release that you now given power. But you can document these things in the trust previously before something happens. Now it's a just in case, or in the event of death, these trustees can handle these certain types of financial plans or even pensions for the benefit of someone else. When you're creating a trust, it's not always about, I'm just putting money away so I can hide it. It's for the benefit of someone as a just in case scenario, just in case you get sued, right? Just in case something was, a sickness. Maybe you get older and it comes dementia and all these different things. It's always talking about just in case if I get, monkeypox or COVID. We don't know what society is doing and creating these self-man-made diseases. They're putting things in food. So this topic of creating a trust for our families became so, I don't want to use the word popular, but we do need to make it popular. To be honest, it's not a bad word to say make it popular, but I want people to get a better understanding so they can get the best use out of having a trust, if that makes sense. Now, when it comes to having a trust, and there's divorces, I always say it takes two to make a thing go right, right? But you have to be mindful that divorces happens in marriages, but it's not saying that it's guaranteed, but you always want to have that in the back of your mind. And that's why some people do get married and say, hey, as a just in case, let's sign this paperwork and let's have a financial agreement. Now, trust can serve a great purpose in cases of asset division, right? And this is just examples, you guys. I'm not targeting just celebrities because it may have a lot of money involved, but just say I'm a divorcee myself. Okay, things happen. And when things happen and you disagree, I can just say from experience, you don't know what the next person's thinking. So the first thing you're thinking is, I need to protect me and my children if you have children, right? And the other person may be thinking the very well same, like, I need to make sure I protect what I have and what I've done and things like that. So with the unknown on both sides, and if you have legal representation when it comes to this, and this is, again, speaking from an experienced place, I had the attorneys saying certain things to me, and then they would say, "Oh, he mentioned this," and I was like, "Oh, he bringing this stuff up." So you don't know what the next person's thinking, and I wouldn't say that the attorney was kind of pulling my leg to, have us really go into a battle, because when you go into a battle, it costs more money and it's long and drawn out, and they would get heavily compensated. Okay, but let's look at these examples here. This is celebrities that was either via social media, via Housewives of Atlanta. But looking at their situation, I wanted to use it as an example, because when you divorce and it's filed with the prenuptial agreement in place, it is usually used to protect the couple's premarital assets, rather if it's business, if it's cash, if it's investments, etc. And it's helping you protect you from your assets becoming a part of the divorce settlement. So again, nowadays, you guys, you don't know if the women got to pay alimony or the men got to pay child support. It varies now these days. Women are paying alimony to men and spousal support to men. So sometimes when it comes to prenups, they have situations in there where they can put in there, hey, I want to waive alimony. Prenups do not help with child custody and child support. So when it comes to having a trust, which is good for this, is saying, hey, I don't own anything. This is why I always say, hey, prenups, trust is better than a prenup, because you're putting these things on file. You're saying, well, I owned this house before we got married. I own this. I own that. Now, guess what? In prenups, you can actually put a trust in the prenup, which most of the times are revocable trusts. Why? Because remember, I mentioned that revocable trust still shows that you are in control of your assets. But if you completely give it up, that is totally out of your joint as one union. So you still have to be smart and very strategic on a financial spectrum of saying, hey, I want to protect what I have coming into this marriage. Now, this man, the guy that married Portia from the Housewives, the first example, he has like 5 children coming into this marriage. She has 1. So again, she wants to protect what her daughter has. If she has some wealth, he has some wealth, and they're both looking like, we got to protect this stuff. But what about a trust? If we're looking at the prenup, these are just agreements, you guys. Agreements can always change, right? Or you can breach a contract agreement. So let's look at the second example. Looking at Jeezy and Jeannie Mae. They're going through a divorce. And when a divorce is filed with a prenuptial agreement in place, and I'm going to say alleged, you guys, because again, these divorces are not final, except for the final example. But for Portia's example, I'm going to use the term alleged. And then also when it comes to Jeezy and Jeannie Mae, I'm going to use these terms alleged. And when these prenuptial agreements are in place, infidelity may come up sometimes. Sometimes it get a little catty, it get a little ugly. And when it comes up, they can now have like some type of lifestyle compensation. They can now say, hey, all those things that you say that these were yours prior to the marriage, it can be like null and void sometimes. It's not always, depending on, again, state laws, depending on, what state you're in, right? But because it can get ugly, the provisions can also get contested. It can prolong a divorce filing. It can go through these processes. I did a clip, a video, and it was a clip from Medea. And he said, when it goes through a divorce, it becomes marital assets, or sometimes in different states, it can become community property. But he made a statement. He said, but she don't own the business, the bank account, the life insurance. So she didn't own these things. So it was not a part of the marriage, you guys. Okay. And then also the complexity of assets and then children getting involved. You want to make sure that when things get catty, you don't start throwing in lies. You don't start throwing in all these kind of crazy things. Or if it is children involved and this person is abusive and this person is, just not a stable parent, you want to make sure that it's in the best interest. Now, can I say having a trust is going to prevent fights and, family feuds? Absolutely not. I can't dictate that. I mean, I wish it helps better with communication and integrity. But when a divorce is filed and prenuptial agreements are involved, even with the trust involved, it can help bring down, controversy, or it can help with, money conversations not coming up. But going through any divorce can be hard, and it's very tough at times, especially if you're buying assets together. So looking at the final example, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, this divorce was a pretty savvy divorce because they both have money, right? They both come from money. Going into this marriage, they pretty had a clear understanding in reference to like their wealth. She kept some things going in, he kept some things going in, and then they also built wealth together and put things into a trust. Now, again, you guys can do your own research. You can look this stuff up and say, hey, do they have a marital trust? Do they have some assets together where the trust own some land, it owns some assets? So it is important that if parties are to separate, it's still okay because the trust is like a business. So in their split of their marriage, the business assets still remain the same unless they agree to, again, dissolve the trust and go 50 split buyout. But as far as from my knowledge, and this is only from my knowledge, that they kept that particular trust that's under those assets in the name of the trust, which protecting all parties and involving, especially considering state laws. You want to make sure that, again, it's not going to change anything when it comes to business. I say this all the time, love is free, but marriage is a business. So you want to go into this understanding, hey, if I have blended family, it's not to say that I'm not going to make sure that these children, my bonus babies or anything like that, will not be taken care of. But you got to look at this thing as a business, and it help you. And if there's ever a separation, it will help you. Now, when it comes to protecting assets, ensuring a smooth transition, even if you are single, and I say this because sometimes people don't get trust because they feel like they're not leaving nothing behind to anyone. You can leave assets to a charitable donation, you guys. If you have like a religious organization that you want to make, you could create something. You could say, hey, I want to start a foundation. If I don't have any children to leave it to, I'm gonna leave it to somebody like Denzel. I'm leaving here with something. You want to leave something behind. Just a legacy is not someone's name, and it's not someone's face that goes on a t-shirt, right? Asset protection will, with the trust, shields your wealth from creditors, lawsuits, and other potential threats, providing a peace of mind. That term, grandmama, granddaddy rolling in her grave, is a particular term that is used when it's like predators or lawsuits are happening. They're threatened to like foreclose the home. They're swindling the land. You got a tax lien on these assets that somebody passed away, and the family can't do anything. Why family can't do anything? Because they were never the rightful owners. They had no control. All right. Also, probate avoidance. Transferring assets through a trust bypass a lengthy and costly probate process, ensuring a quicker distribution. Now, again, when it comes to distributions, that also can cause a tax implication. Now, if you're looking at waterfall methods, where if a person passed away, they have insurance policies and they're literally strategically funding the trust where we're not releasing assets, that's also helpful. And that's also another way that you can form the trust or structure the trust, where it's like, if I was to die, it goes to my child to become the successor. We're not taking nothing out the trust. We're actually just changing the managing party. You can do that in the trust. Only because I get a lot of questions like, hey, do a trust dissolve? Can a trust be, expired? This happens when you don't have the right positions in place. Like I talked about, having people as trustees and successors. If they die before you, or you're the one outliving these individuals, then yes, the trust can expire, right? The trust can also dissolve it once you take everything out the name of the trust. I use an analogy of putting things inside like a cup. You start adding house, bank account, car, businesses inside of the name of the trust. That means you title the owner as the business. Okay. So now you're saying, ABC Enterprise, the trust owns that enterprise. So once you title it on paper, it's not going to be removed unless someone actually remove it. Okay. And when you keep the trust as owner, it will remain inside of that trust. Okay, those are two entities working together. But when you put things like people as the CEOs or things like that, then that's how it will not be in the trust. I use that analogy like, hey, if you say, I want to put all these assets in a trust for my daughter. My daughter name is Jennifer, right? And you're like, hey, I want to use this. I want to put these assets inside the trust for Jennifer. Okay, well, it goes from private name, ABC Private Family Trust, to Jennifer. Now that shows publicly that she receives some inheritance. So even if it comes to incapacitating planning, trust outlines your wishes for healthcare and financial decisions. It can become unable to make your it can become unable to make them yourself. Meaning, if you're considered dementia, or you're considered like you cannot make health decisions on your own, you got a power of attorney, you got somebody to come in, or even in incarceration situations, a trust can be in place to say, hey, when it comes to financial planning, put me in a nursing home, or hey, when it goes to hospice, but also financial decisions and healthcare decisions, right? You can now give up ownership, where when the person passed away, they're not having a major medical bill. And now all your assets is paying back to the medical bill, the medical company. So trust is very important to have. And again, structure is the most important based on how you will receive. So providing for your children, even from previous marriages. I hear this a lot, blended family consideration, okay? What is it? How does it look if, using the other example, if a person come in having 5 kids and you have 1, and maybe y'all have 1 together, right? How do you structure a trust? By saying, I want my spouse to have benefits, I want my kids before my spouse to have benefits, and I want my bonus baby and my youngest child to have benefits. That is something that is a normal question. So trust allows you to make provisions for children from previous relationships, ensuring that they are cared for. And if you don't want the mothers to get the money, because this is another thing, I had a client, he mentioned about having 5 baby mom and 5 children from different women. He was not trying to take care of the women. He just wanted to take care of the children. And they're all separate women, so it wasn't like he could put all of them together. Now, this is something that he decided that he wanted to do, right? It's up to this person. It's always going to vary of how you want to ensure they will be cared for, all right? Minimizing conflict, right? Clarity, defining the trust terms can help prevent disputes between your spouse, your children, and stepchildren. And the reason why this becomes a major topic is because you have some people, and I'll give an example. Let's say a woman married a man, right? The man has adult children, but the husband passed away, leaving his wife the house. Now, this adult children are looking, saying, how does she get remarried to a man that's in my daddy's house, right? And then they're like, what are we to do? She's like, well, you're the stepchildren, and you're my stepchildren. We love you, but you're not getting in this house. It's me and my husband's house now. So it minimizes conflict. You have to think down your lineage. You got to think down the line. Hey, you know who you're married. You know who your family members are. It's very important to think of these things. And I'm not saying that this may sound controversial, but you may have bonus babies and they say, hey, I know your father purchased this house. We're going to sell it. We're going to split profit between you and the children. You can do that as well if you can't come up with agreements. Most people would sell it. But if not, you say, you know what, I'm going to move out and I'm allowed this is your father's house. And some people can make those mature decisions. But if the trust can ensure that it will help, this is a great way and a great tool. Preserving family harmony. Trust can help maintain family unity by outlining your wishes and promoting transparent communication. Having this conversation, we like to say family meetings, right? Having these family meetings, discussing this. I know talking about death can be uncomfortable for people, but discussing it is as an outline, what if something happens to me? What do you want me to do? What would you want me to have? What are you doing today that will say, if I make this investment, it's going to pay back 20 years down the line, right? These are healthy conversations that need to be transparent. And it gives you a peace of mind, and it's helpful to educate your children if they're young and be like, this is all we talked about. There's other cultures that this is what they're talking about. This is how a family is ran. It's actually ran like a business. And they're like, yeah, I know that when I get older, I'm going to inherit dad's business. And you hear these terms all the time, but sometimes other families are missing this information. Equitable is an equitable distribution. All right. So trust enables you to distribute your assets fairly among all your beneficiaries, including your stepchildren, if this was a wish. Because again, we talked about different loopholes depending on what you have. You may say to somebody, say, I want to buy this land and I want all my children to split benefits and sell it. It's going to be valued at this. Some people will put that in their distribution. You can still, hey, this is going to come out the trust. This is going to stay in the trust. This is for my great, 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 great grandchildren. So you can form it the way you choose to form it. This is why when I help advocate and discuss these conversations with people, if they choose to go to an attorney, they at least have this much information as an outline to say, hey, I want to be fair. I want to, what I have today, at least I have the knowledge to know when I do get land, when I do start my business, when I do build a home, what are my intentions and what's my end goal going to be? All right. So special needs. It don't necessarily have to be someone that's handicapped, but typically this happens. And you have sometimes a child, let's say you have two children, since this is a picture of two children, right? You have two children, one that has a special need and the other do not have a special need. And what will be the fairness of ensuring that both will be taken care of? So a special needs trust is funded first by someone other than a beneficiary, usually a parent or guardian. Now, it can be, okay, it can be revocable or irrevocable, because I don't want you guys to feel like after listening to this presentation that you just one-sided, but I do want you guys to make the best decision for your family, okay? And look up, again, the definition, the legal definitions of revocable and irrevocable. But with this type of trust, you can appoint secondary beneficiaries to inherit the remainder of funds when the original beneficiary dies. Because again, I tell you guys, people, individuals, they pass away. And then if we don't leave, if so-and-so pass away, who's going to be the next? This is why you can also look this up, that a trust can be beneficiaries, an estate can be beneficiaries. And again, that gives you some type of control to say, at least I can have someone come in and open up this estate. I can have a banker trustee come and open up this estate. I can have someone that is hired as a trust company to come at least open up this estate, and it can now take care of another generation. All right. So a trustee will help manage. Okay. A trustee will help manage, invest, and distribute or disperse funds for your loved ones with special needs. Either a bank can serve as a trustee. Again, you got to make sure you do your due diligence, check behind me, because if you hire a bank corporate trustee or a banker trustee, they have fees. They like, listen, we got to charge you by managing this wealth. If we got to manage it yearly, we got to manage it monthly, what have you. Some people say, hey, I want my children to get a monthly distribution, right? The trustees will charge you. So just be mindful if you don't have no assets inside the trust. And again, this is not going to be beneficial to your family because you don't have no funds in the trust. All right. So you'll need to transfer funds into the trust with assets like cash, investments, life insurance policies, etc. So your loved ones can access funds when the needs arise. So when it comes to special needs, now funds that is held in a special need trust will not affect their SSI, disability, Medicaid, recipient benefits. You get some that's still on like Medicaid. You get some that may have like therapy, maybe in like rehabilitation centers, access to things like equipment, hearing aids, you name it, wheelchairs. They're still getting those benefits, even if their family has wealth. They're not getting denied saying that, hey, Jennifer, she comes from money because her mom owns this. Her mom owns this. Mom has a bank account. Mom has a business. You don't think that they're going to go through an asset search based on your social security number? So what you can do is, in saying, in my demise, I still want my child to get approved for, those funds, Because when you get SSI disability benefits, things like that, they may put like a stipulation, say, hey, you're not allowed to make this certain amount of money, because you still see disabled people working, but they can't make a certain amount. Sometimes they hire a lot of people at Walmart as Walmart greeters, and they don't, I'm just giving you guys examples. They don't go over their capacity where they can, affect those benefits like Section 8, food stamps, Medicaid, and things like that. So with creating a trust, you'll say, hey, I have a special needs daughter, but I do want her to have these things privately. I want you to take care of my child. She's still going to get them benefits, right? She's still going to get them benefits, but I want to make sure that she has everything else that she needs through the trust. So the funds belong to the trust and not the baby Jennifer. I'm just using, I don't know who Jennifer is. I'm just using Jennifer as an example. So therefore, your child won't be cut off of those government benefits eligibility. And again, I've seen this a lot in wealthy families. They are still using government benefits. They're not releasing who owns what because they're properly structured. In the naked eye, it looks like fraud because sometimes people are not positioned right. You just don't put on the application falsified information. You actually say, I actually do not own this home. I do not own this bank account. I do not own a life insurance policy. I do not own these things. And because the trust owns everything, and it's, again, irrevocable, remember, it means that you gave up ownership, because if you have a revocable, that will not work for your benefit. It still will show who owns what. And this is also helpful for underage children too. I know it mentions a lot about special needs, but it's also helpful for children that is like, I don't have to wait till I turn 18. You hear that term like, oh, I'm gonna wait till I'm 18 and my dad's gonna give me $1 million because when he died, he left me $1 million, but I can't get it yet. But the special needs trust would allow you, if you're underage, you will be receiving those benefits as income. That's why some people get like apartment. They're like, oh, I don't pay bills. My family trust pays the bills. So this is not something that is only culture-based, right? This is about having the knowledge now and implementing these things for the legacy and the financial future for your children. All right. So when it comes to family coverage, using life insurance policies is so important that we understand how to leverage a life insurance policy. Most families don't even know. They just get insurance for death benefits. They don't even understand how they can leverage life insurance. If you've never heard of to incorporate totally, it has a third-party owned life insurance, but it's also trust-owned life insurance policy. You can put an irrevocable trust as the owner. You can put the irrevocable trust as the policy holder, the payee, and the beneficiary. It provides a tax-free benefit and protects the assets for your family. A lot of people say, hey, you can get tax-free insurance, but then they don't realize they get taxed because they get hit with inheritance tax and things like that. So you do want to be mindful that the trust is the beneficiary, so it won't show who publicly received the benefit. Now, when you have the person inside the trust, they can all be listed as successor trustees that will be making payments and distributing and managing those things that is beneficial for the trust. And trustees do get paid for managing these assets. So there you go. You are still receiving the benefit. All right. It's just not publicly. Also, irrevocable trust ownership. The irrevocable trust, not you, owns the life insurance policy. Especially when you hear index, you hear IULs, individual, is it individual, universal? No, I forgot, you guys. I'm sorry. Universal UIL, IUL, individual universal life insurance. I don't know, but cash value, a whole life policies. And when it comes to compound interest, when it comes to like you're gaining interest on your policy, now it don't mean that you individually own that policy where you can pull cash out by yourself or personally. It now shows that the trust owns the life insurance policy. Now, you guys, I'm not a life insurance agent, as you can tell, but it is very helpful when you're sitting down with your agent that you come and discuss these things. Say, hey, is it possible for the life insurance to be the trust to own this policy, Also, the trust bank account can be the premium payments can come out that trust bank account. And then also the beneficiary can be the trust of the life insurance policy. Now, you still will be the insured party, meaning that whoever's getting approved for the policy, go ahead and give over your information so they can say, hey, you're approved, your health is good to be approved for $1 million policy. Don't lie on those applications, you guys, because again, if you lie on these applications, whether if it's a trust-owned policy or not, they do not have to pay you guys if you're like lying about whatever health conditions that you may have. So please be mindful of that. This policy, that way this policy removes the death benefit from the taxable estate. If you guys are also saying, hey, we're going to use this benefit for a loan that's been taken out, and sometimes you can take out loans from insurance policies to start businesses, to make investments, and then whatever's left, remember that insured party can say, hey, we're going to go ahead and use that money to pay off that estate taxable income. All right. Also, ensure your family's security. The trust can provide a secure financial future for your loved ones, even in the event of your passing, because again, it don't have to be presented publicly. The trust owns everything. The trust owns the policy, the trust is the beneficiary, and the trust was paying the premiums monthly payment. So this is also good and helpful when it comes to insurance policies and understanding how it can protect your family. Now, the whole nutshell of having a trust, whether if you're single, whether if you're married, whether if you have children, whether if you don't have children, whether if you are, you know, at the beginning stages of producing income, if you either work a 9 to 5, maybe you're looking to receive some type of award, inheritance, maybe hit the lottery, what have you. The point of having a trust in place is minimizing conflicts, minimizing confusion, minimizing disputes, minimizing probate process, clear communication. That's one. Openly discuss your trust and estate plan and wishes with your family. It can prevent future misunderstandings. You get a lot of people that walk away from estates to even open the estate, to even go back and visit people's plots and things like that. So they're not visiting the estate, planning that probate, to even discuss how to get any wealth out of there. If they even have to go to a couple of court dates, they get burnt out by the timing. Families are fighting. So they're saying, you know what, it's not worth fighting over. And then that's when you have outside like tax auctions, you have wholesalers, you have individuals, attorneys, anyone that can get access to public records of an estate of a decedent. They can see that there's wealth in there because all of this is public if they did not have a trust. When it comes to having a trust, you can make everything private. You can show what's private owned. Even if they see ABC Family Trust owns this house, that's just what it says publicly, ABC Family Trust. They don't know who that is. They don't know if it's John and, you know, Jennifer and Teresa, right? So it gives clear communication of what you desire. It's designated trustees is very helpful. It can be a financial accountant. It can be somebody that you trust, a friend, a family, a loved one, a spouse can be a trustee. You can appoint impartial trustees to manage the trust, helps ensure fair and transparent administrations. I've also seen some creative ways where if I'm the grantor, then my husband is the trustee of one of the trusts, and then vice versa. He is the grantor, but I will be the trustee of his trust. And then as a married couple, we have 2 trusts that can be the owner on a joint bank account. I don't want y'all to miss that, okay? Just give y'all a little strategic things because I am a divorcee, and to tell y'all we got back together. So things can work out, and it could be clear communication if you didn't have it before. But you know, you hear a lot of things like joint bank accounts when someone get married. You hear things like, oh, get the mortgage loan together, and then when things go crazy, it gets super, super ugly. So what we have decided from my own personal experience is that we're still going to be clear with communication. We're going to designate the appointed trustees that's going to ensure a fair, transparent administration, and also dispute resolution, incorporate in meditation and arbitrating clauses, and the trust can help resolve potential conflicts effectively and efficiently. Because that sometimes you just don't know, right? And when they become ignorant to knowledge, the only way we can resolve is with our emotions, and our feelings get involved. And then we realize, we sit back and say, we didn't have to react that way because it's just that I didn't know. So if you want to get more coaching and guidance to someone that is a trusted partner, a trusted person that's very knowledgeable in this area, you can connect with us in our team. You can retain an attorney. With this knowledge, you can still learn. And as you continue to learn this information on your journey, there's no law that states that you cannot create a trust yourself. So even if you're on this journey of learning this information, you can say, you know what? I want to make sure that I consider all the benefits and the factors when it comes to the trust, especially when it comes to the tax consideration and benefits. It is a tax savings the way that it's properly structured, and also for the protection of these assets. So the trust can provide significant tax advantages, such as reduced estate taxes and income federal tax, or income tax deferral, because you're not receiving income personally, right? Asset protection. Trust shields your wealth from creditors, lawsuits, and preserving your family's financial security. If you do not own anything, how can they sue you for the things that you do not own? Don't forget, if they sue a business and it's trust owned, don't forget to get insurance on the business. I get people to be like, I put it in the trust can't get sued. Then they sue the business, and the business don't have no insurance. So it's helpful to get insurance, even on property. Make sure you have property insurance and things like that. Simplify administrations, okay? Don't make it all complicated. The trust streamlines the management and distribution of your assets, reducing hassles and complexity. Sometimes if it makes it very simplified, again, what makes it very clear when it comes to our family legacy is that we always going to have a signer in place, because again, if I leave today or tomorrow, some of my children are underage. I do have a child that's over 22. But I do have a grandson. So I have these things in place and saying, as a just in case, I want to think about my lineage. I want to think about everyone involved, that I have boys, they're reproducers too. They're going to get married. Someone else is going to be carrying their last name. So then you got the estate just keep growing and growing because of the last name just keep changing and bringing other families in. So you think about those things too. And customized control. Trust allows you to tailor your instructions, the distributions of your assets according to your unique family needs. You can protect those underage children. You can protect those special needs children. You can protect from elder abuse. You see this a lot, that you think that these people don't have no family members, and now all of a sudden every asset is going to the CNA. Someone that would just, cleaning a bedpan out, and all the assets going to the elders, or you get, when they're of age, they cannot make decisions because medically they're incompetent and they don't have anything in place. And sometimes a will is created, and guess what? Sometimes it don't get approved because they were medically incompetent. They were not able, or incapacitated, should I use the term, because incompetent is not the proper word, incapacitated, and sometimes it's not approved. So you want to go through these processes, not when it's at the last of your ending of your death term, but when you're ensuring a legacy. Being prepared is like a term that I always use, because we're never prepared. But the thing is, and this is reality, that life is not guaranteed, but death is inevitable. Okay. So thank you for watching, but keep these things in mind. The key benefits of a trust is asset protection, wealth transfer strategy, providing for your loved ones. It's a legal scapegoat. You don't have to have everything in your name. Savings for your loved one's future. You can put things away, store it into the trust for the next generation. It's also privacy. No one knows what you own but you, as you move it over to the trust. You customize and make that trust name very unique, something that your family will understand. Now that we're going into a digital currency, and sometimes they got Bitcoins and privacy coins and things like that, where you can now put in your passcodes and passwords and all these different access tools, and you can make it private, put it in some cool little riddles. You can have family code names, some things like that. Tailor-make your estate planning, addressing the blended family needs, minimizing conflicts and dispute, divorce strategy when it comes to asset division, customizing control over assets, establishing your trust. You want to be a part of that process. Meeting an estate planning attorney. I don't always say that you do not go to an attorney. We are here to assist you. If you want to go to an attorney, make sure that you be inquisitive, right? Say things in reference to, hey, do we get the executed copy? Make sure that, you are asking specific questions of their roles and their fees, of how they're going to be, benefiting from the trust that is being created. You have the right to know these things and gather necessary financial information for yourself. Sometimes you get in those consultations with the legal counsel, and you gave up all the information to the attorney. You don't have a copy yourself, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I don't even have a copy of my life insurance policy, right? You got to print these things out, put it in a fireproof safe, and decide on the trust terms for you and your beneficiary. These are the benefits of having a trust. This is what you need to know. If you don't have a trust, start working on getting it. It is very, very crucial. It is so important. Even if you own a house or you're looking to own a bank account or any of those things, the investment is worth it. Thank you for watching.